Right, this is just another section of the Sega map, and I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about we're up here with Teilhard de Chardin, and he's within the context of Julian Huxley of UNESCO and World Wildlife Foundation, and all of this Huxley, his brother. He was influenced by Lamarck and his grandfather Thomas Henry Huxley, Darwin's bulldog, and so Teilhard Jan was sort of interfacing the Catholic faith system with this idea of planned evolution, and we have several guest posts on that on my blog. So we've got Teilhard de Chardin and the noosphere, that was informing Rand's research on noopolitik, this idea of convergence at the omega point, which to me might be this Gaia panpsychism consciousness that they're going to hand out digital wallets to everyone and gamify it and put us all into the equation. This does overlap in the UK, I think, with the Fabian Society, and a lot of people focus on socialism, but I think ultimately this is going to be linked to mutualism, right? Program mutualism and Web3 collectivism, and that it's about drawing on human energy, the energy of our consciousness in particular, as well as our biology. So it overlaps with the Fabians and then the Theosophists in Annie Besant. So this is sort of all going on in this area, and the Human Energy Project, I think, is linked to Francis Heiligen. And I know Seb Solomon has talked about Heiligen quite a bit as well. Super important in cybernetics and evolutionary systems design. And so we have to understand that this panpsychism that they're imagining is a complex system that is undergoing emergence. And so, his focus on evolutionary complexity and being an affiliate with the Santa Fe Institute, again, we're going back to, Santa Fe Institute is closely allied with Los Alamos in New Mexico. But Heiligen looking at complexity, agent-based modeling, complex evolution towards this convergent point, right, where we all become of one mind. And he developed, he was the director of something called Principia Cybernetica, evolutionary systems theory. And here, a co-founder was Cliff Joslin with Department of Energy. Remember how I said Department of Energy is connected with the Human Genome Project and the Manhattan Project, and the idea of biosemiotics. So when Oxman is talking about molecular language, that is the language of biology. That is the systemization of it. And I think that they're looking for a chemical component, a chemical equation for quote unquote life and soul, which I think is sort of impossible to get to. But looking at building a global brain, which is, what Oliver Reiser has been talking about for a long time. And, I can imagine that one of the presentations of this global brain would be, the Hanson Robotics iCog brain, which is using Yosha Bach's micro-psi behavior programming system. And it's interesting that, again, Ted Goertzel's father, Ted, was a sociologist, so social systems thinking. But we've got, again, the noosphere linked to the Human Energy Project and Francis Heiligen, working on developing a global brain in conjunction with the Santa Fe Institute on complex systems modeling. And then Jocelyn was a team leader in modeling and simulation at Los Alamos, run by the Department of Energy, and connected to cryogenics and magnetics, and ultimately swarm intelligence and this eusocial insects. And then so that's all of Heiligen. And then over here, remember we've got the world brain, we got the noosphere up here. We're going down the other direction, and just focusing on a little bit the Society for Psychical Research, because there's a book that I've looked at, the Immortalization Commission, where they've been imagining this idea of speaking to the dead, speaking to people in other dimensions. This was in the late 19th century. High level figures in England, including Arthur Balfour, who was the Prime Minister and led the Balfour Declaration that led to the creation of the State of Israel. Lord Rayleigh, a physicist whose focus was on acoustics and fluid dynamics. His sister-in-law Eleanor, who was working with Gerald Balfour in Parliament. And then you've got illustrious cultural individuals like Arthur Conan Doyle and Lewis Carroll, as well as chemists and people interested in hypnotism. And a U.S. affiliate was William James, who was a psychologist of perception at Harvard. And it was William James that founded the American division, the American Psychical Society, with William Barrett of England, and I guess G. Stanley Hall of Clark University, who was looking at evolution. And there were several other founders. Charles Sedgwick, comparative anatomy at Harvard, Simon Newcomb, astronomer and mathematician, Edward Charles Pickering, Harvard and MIT astronomer. So you've got that. You've got Samuel Hubbard, an entomologist and zoologist. And ultimately it was, let me see, Joseph Banks was another U.S. affiliate to the Society for Psychical Research. And he became director of, and he was influenced by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and he was a researcher. Joseph Banks Rhine, J.B. Rhine. He was the director of the Duke Parapsychology Lab, and I've talked about that in one of my last couple of posts of doing site visits to the site of the Duke Parapsychology Lab. And he was a correspondent with Conrad Hilton, who was working with Oliver Reiser on this sort of panpsychic space. And again, that's what Levin is talking about, alternate kinds of intelligences, alternate kinds of minds. And this is built on energy and crystals, I think, and human beings are definitely in the mix. And I think they're in the mix not just because they want to boss us around and use their cybernetic programs to dominate us, but actually that our biology and our spiritual technology per se, our soul and our creativity is part of the plan to use society and society in relationship to nature through token exchange as part of this some sort of programming problem. And I'm really open to know what exactly the system has in mind for us, but that's what it definitely feels like.